I sat in the worn leather armchair that still carried the faint scent of my late husband's pipe tobacco, the mahogany table between us gleaming under the afternoon light filtering through the Victorian windows of our Greenwich home. Lydia and Marcus sat across from me, their postures relaxed, almost triumphant. My daughter wore that perfectly tailored cream blouse she always chose for important family discussions, while my son-in-law adjusted his cufflinks, the ones engraved with his law firm's initials. "Mom," Lydia began, her voice smooth as silk. "We already filed the petition this morning. You're moving out next week." I lifted my teacup slowly, the porcelain cool against my fingers, and took a measured sip. Earl Grey, no sugar. The same blend I had drunk every afternoon for 32 years in this house. "Moving where, exactly?" Marcus leaned forward, his smile never reaching his eyes. "Assisted living. The facility in Darien is top tier. They have round-the-clock care, activities, everything a woman your age needs. We've already put down the deposit, $42,000 for the first quarter." I set the cup down without a sound. "And who authorized this?" Lydia exchanged a quick glance with him. "We did, as your family. The attorney we hired specializes in elder care." "Dr. Patel's notes from your last checkup raised concerns. Forgetting to pay the property tax last quarter. Misplacing your checkbook twice. It all adds up to diminished capacity, Mom. We're protecting you." Protecting me. The words hung in the air like smoke from a candle just blown out. I had spent 41 years analyzing risk for one of the most cautious hedge funds on Wall Street. I had caught errors that saved clients millions. And now my own daughter was using a forgotten tax bill against me. Marcus slid a thick manila envelope across the table. "Here are the papers." We kept it simple. The petition cites mental incompetence. Once the court approves, we'll manage the trust fund properly. No more risky decisions. I picked up the envelope. The paper felt heavier than it should. My fingers, still steady after all these decades, broke the seal. Inside lay the court filing, neatly stapled. And there, on page 3, was a signature that was not mine. A shaky, uncertain scroll attempting to imitate the precise loops I had perfected since business school. They had forged it. My pulse remained even. I had trained myself for moments like this long ago, when markets crashed and billions vanished in hours. Panic was a luxury I never afforded. "This was only the beginning of their perfect plan," I said quietly, folding the document and placing it back inside the envelope. Lydia smiled, that influencer smile she practiced in the mirror for her lifestyle posts. "You'll thank us later, Mom. The trust has over $4.2 million. We'll make sure it lasts. Sophia's tuition, our vacations, everything covered responsibly." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. No more of those conservative bonds you kept insisting on. We have opportunities. Real estate flips in the Hamptons, private equity, things that actually grow money." I looked at them both. Really looked. Lydia's manicured nails tapping lightly on the table. Marcus's Rolex catching the light. They had already spent the money in their minds, spent it on the life they believed they deserved. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting only slightly after years of silent endurance. "I see." That was all I said. Lydia rose too, smoothing her blouse. "The movers come Monday." "We've cleared most of the upstairs already. Your clothes are packed. We left a few sentimental items in the guest room for now." They left the room together, their footsteps confident on the hardwood floors I had refinished myself after Richard died. I waited until the front door clicked shut behind them. Only then did I walk to the small desk in the corner, the one hidden behind the heavy velvet curtain. I opened the bottom drawer and removed the slim black notebook I had kept for years, not for nostalgia, for records. Page after page of entries. Dates, amounts, conversations noted in my precise handwriting. The $187,000 I wired to cover Lydia's credit card debt when she was 28 and starting her brand. The $312,000 for Marcus's failed law partnership buy-in. The endless loans that were never repaid, always framed as family helping family. I closed the notebook. They thought they had won. They had no idea I had been preparing for betrayal since the day Richard's will named me sole trustee. I opened the envelope once more, staring at the forged signature under the soft lamplight. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. Monday arrived with the low rumble of a moving truck idling in the driveway. I stood at the top of the stairs, one hand resting on the banister I had polished myself 20 years earlier. Lydia directed the two men in gray uniforms like a film set. "Careful with the china cabinet," she called, her voice bright. "That's going to storage for now." They did not ask me. They simply moved. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching. "It's for the best, Eleanor. The upstairs is too much for you. We've set up the basement guest room. It has its own bathroom. Perfect for now." Perfect. The word landed like a coin on marble. I watched them carry out the oak dresser that held my late husband's suits, the boxes of bank statements I had meticulously filed from 1998 onward, the small safe that contained my original trust documents. None of it was mine anymore, apparently. Not in their eyes. By noon, the truck was loaded. My clothes, my photographs, even the teacup set from our 30th anniversary. Gone. I followed them downstairs without protest. The basement room was 8 feet by 10, concrete floor painted gray, a single high window letting in a sliver of daylight. A narrow bed, a folding chair, and a card table they had dragged down from the garage. The air smelled faintly of mildew and old paint. Lydia placed a small suitcase at my feet. "Your essentials. We left the rest in climate-controlled storage. You'll get a monthly allowance once the court approves everything. $500 should cover incidentals." 500. I had managed 4.2 million for decades. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was thin. My back already ached at the thought of nights here, but I said nothing. I simply opened the notebook I had slipped into my cardigan pocket before they began. Marcus checked his watch. "Attorney called. Hearing is scheduled for the 23rd. We expect smooth sailing. Dr. Patel's report is ironclad." They left me there and went upstairs. Their footsteps echoed like distant thunder. I heard the refrigerator door open, the pop of a wine cork, then laughter. I waited until the house grew quiet around 7 that evening. Then I crept up the basement stairs, barefoot on the cold wood. The door at the top was unlocked. They had not even bothered to lock me in yet. I moved through the hallway like a shadow and stopped outside the dining room. The French doors were slightly ajar. Inside, the three of them sat at the same mahogany table. Candlelight flickered across their faces. Sophia scrolled on her phone, giggling. "And the villa in Tuscany books out at $18,400 for the week," Lydia was saying, her voice warm with excitement. "Trust fund covers it completely. First-class flights, private chef, the works. We deserve this after everything we've been through." Marcus raised his glass. "To responsible management. The attorney says once the incompetence ruling hits, we can liquidate those old bonds she loved so much, turn them into real growth." Sophia looked up. "Can I get my Paris studio deposit early? 250,000 would set me up nicely. I already found the perfect atelier near the Seine." Lydia laughed softly. "We'll talk about it after the hearing, sweetheart. But yes, the trust is family money now." I stood perfectly still, notebook in hand. I wrote every word. Date, time, exact amount. $18,400. Their vacation, my money, my house, my life reduced to a line item. They had cut my main phone line that morning. The secondary bank card I kept for emergencies no longer worked. I discovered that when I tried to order a simple taxi online from the basement's weak Wi-Fi. "Account frozen pending court review," the automated message had said. My primary checking balance, once comfortable, now showed 0 available. I had one card left, the old Centurion, issued in my name alone years ago. They did not know about it yet. I would use it sparingly. I slipped back downstairs before they noticed. The basement room felt smaller in the dark. I sat at the card table under the single bulb and opened my notebook again. Page after page filled with dates, transfers, and signatures that never should have been there. Tomorrow I would photograph the latest bank statements they had carelessly left on the kitchen counter. Evidence. Always evidence. Around 11, I heard footsteps above me. Marcus's voice carried clearly through the heating vent. He was in the study, door open, speaking on speakerphone. Yes, this is Marcus Harrington. I'm calling about the Voss Family Trust account, routing number 8472. We need to prepare a withdrawal, 1.2 million. Yes, wire transfer, early next week, once the petition is rubber-stamped. My mother-in-law's situation is deteriorating fast. We want to move the funds into a more aggressive portfolio before the market shifts. The bank manager's voice replied, tinny through the vent. Understood, Mr. Harrington. We'll need the court order attached, but assuming everything clears, the funds will be available by Wednesday. Marcus chuckled. Perfect. And keep this quiet. No statements sent to the old address. She doesn't need to see the numbers right now. I closed the notebook slowly. My hand did not shake. 1.2 million. Just like that. Gone in a single wire. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. I opened the envelope they had given me on Friday once more. The forged signature stared back at me under the dim bulb. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. The next morning, the basement door opened without a knock. Sophia descended the narrow stairs in her oversized linen shirt, the one she wore when she wanted to look artistic and fragile. Her hair was twisted up in a messy bun, a few strands artfully loose. She carried a manila folder and a tablet. "Grandma," she said, voice pitched soft and sweet like the videos she posted for her 11,000 followers. "We need to talk about my future." I sat at the card table, the notebook open but face down. I had spent the night photographing the bank statements Marcus had left out. 32 images on the Centurion Card's hidden app. Every transfer, every pending authorization. My hands were steady as I closed the notebook. Sophia pulled up the folding chair and sat. The metal legs scraped against the concrete. "Paris. I found the perfect studio space near the Marais. 2,200 square feet. North Light, the works. The owner wants a $250,000 deposit by Friday to hold it. It's an investment in my career. You always said talent should be supported." I looked at her. Really looked. The same girl I had paid $48,000 in private school tuition for. The same girl whose failed gallery show in Soho I had quietly covered with another $72,000. $250,000. I repeated, voice even. She nodded, eyes bright. "It's not a gift, Grandma. It's my early inheritance. Mom and Dad agree. The trust can afford it. Once the court thing is done, it's all family money anyway." Lydia's heels clicked on the stairs behind her. Marcus followed, carrying a fresh stack of papers. They had clearly rehearsed this. Lydia placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "It's a reasonable request, Mom. Sophia has real potential. The Paris program is prestigious. We can wire the funds today if you just sign this codicil." Marcus slid the papers across the table. 3 pages. Notarized sections already flagged with yellow tabs. "It's simple. You're acknowledging that Sophia is entitled to an advance distribution. Standard language, no big deal." I picked up the top sheet. My eyes scanned the clauses. Clause 4.2. Irrevocable advance of $250,000 from the Voss Family Trust Principal. Clause 7. Eleanor Voss confirms she is of sound mind and freely consents. My forged signature line waited at the bottom, identical to the one in the court petition. I set the paper down. Marcus leaned in. "Look, Eleanor, we don't want this to get ugly. The attorney says if you fight the incompetence petition, it could drag on for months. Legal fees would eat into the trust. Better for everyone if we keep things amicable." Lydia smiled, the same smile she used on her brand sponsorship calls. "Sign it, Mom. For Sophia. She's your only grandchild. Don't you want to see her succeed? Sophia reached across and touched my wrist. Her fingers were cold. Please, Grandma. I already posted the teaser on my stories. Everyone's expecting this move. If it falls through now, it'll look so bad. I let the silence stretch. 10 seconds. 15. The single bulb hummed above us. I could hear the furnace cycling on in the corner. The same furnace I had paid $12,000 to replace 6 years ago. Finally, I spoke. You want $250,000. Today. Marcus exhaled, relieved. Exactly. Wire goes out at 3 p.m. if we move fast. I picked up the pen they had placed beside the papers. Not my usual Mont Blanc, a cheap ballpoint. I clicked it once. Twice. Then I signed. Not my real signature, a deliberate, shaky version that matched the forgery they had already used. Let them think I was breaking. Sophia squealed and hugged me. Her perfume was too sweet, like vanilla and desperation. Thank you, Grandma. You're the best. Lydia gathered the papers quickly, as if afraid I might change my mind. I'll scan these and send them to the attorney right now. The bank manager is already on standby. Marcus checked his watch. Perfect. We'll celebrate tonight. Steak from that place in town. Your treat, of course. They left the basement together, footsteps light, voices already planning the Paris trip. I waited until the door clicked shut at the top of the stairs. Then I opened the notebook and wrote every detail. Date, time, exact amount requested, $250,000. Witnesses present, pressure applied. I photographed the signed codicil with my phone before they took the originals upstairs. Another layer for the file. By evening, the house smelled of grilled steak and red wine. I stayed in the basement. I had used the Centurion card earlier that afternoon to order a simple sandwich delivery through a third-party app. $18.70. My first meal in 2 days that wasn't whatever leftovers they remembered to bring down. At 9:15, the doorbell rang. I heard Marcus answer it. Muffled voices, then his footsteps on the basement stairs again. He carried a single white envelope, legal size, with a law firm return address embossed in gold. Special delivery, he said, dropping it on the card table. From our attorney. Routine paperwork. He left without waiting for me to open it. I broke the seal slowly. Inside were 3 pages. The top sheet was an official eviction notice addressed to me, Eleanor Voss, at my own address. 30 days to vacate the premises. Grounds. Owner of record, the trust, has determined the property requires renovation and the current occupant poses a risk to property value due to documented cognitive decline. The signature at the bottom was the same attorney who had filed the mental incompetence petition. They had used the trust's ownership clause against me. My own house. The house Richard and I bought with cash in 1987. The house I had paid the mortgage on alone after he died. The house whose taxes I had covered every single year. I read the notice twice. Then I laid it flat on the table and photographed every line. They had just served me eviction papers for the only home I had left. I closed the notebook and stared at the single high window where the last of the daylight was fading. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. The following evening, the doorbell rang at precisely 6:30. I heard Lydia's heels on the hardwood above me, then the murmur of new voices. A man's baritone, professional and clipped. The notary. They had scheduled this without telling me, of course. Marcus descended the basement stairs first, carrying a tray with 4 glasses of water. No ice. Family meeting, Eleanor. Upstairs in the dining room. 5 minutes. Don't keep everyone waiting. I closed the notebook I had been updating with yesterday's eviction notice details and slipped it into the inner pocket of my cardigan. The Centurion card stayed hidden in my shoe. I stood without a word and followed him up. My legs felt heavier than they should after 3 nights on the thin mattress, but I kept my back straight. The mahogany table had been cleared of everything except a single stack of fresh documents. The notary, a short man in a navy suit with a silver name tag reading Harold Klein, certified, sat at the head. He offered me a polite nod. Sophia perched on the window seat, scrolling her phone. Lydia stood behind her, hands resting on her daughter's shoulders, like a protective shield. Marcus pulled out my usual chair for me, the one facing the garden I had planted myself. "Sit, Eleanor. This won't take long." I sat. The wood felt cold through my slacks. Harold cleared his throat and slid a single page across to me. "Mrs. Voss, this is a simple acknowledgement form. Your family has asked me to witness your voluntary confirmation that you understand the current petition regarding your capacity. It's not a full hearing, just a preliminary statement for the record." Lydia smiled at him. "We want everything above board." Mom's always been meticulous about paperwork. I read the paragraph once, then twice. It stated, in crisp legal language, that Eleanor Voss hereby acknowledges episodes of confusion, memory lapses, and diminished decision-making ability, sufficient to warrant professional management of the Voss Family Trust. My signature line waited below, already flagged with a red arrow sticker. Marcus leaned back, loosening his tie. "Harold's one of the best in Fairfield County. I've used him on 3 closings this year alone. My connections in court helped fast-track the whole petition. Judge Reynolds owes me a favor from that waterfront condo deal last spring. Smooth sailing, Eleanor. Just sign and we can all move forward." I picked up the pen they had placed beside the form, the same cheap ballpoint from yesterday. I clicked it once, letting the sound fill the quiet room. Sophia looked up from her phone. "Grandma, it's really not a big deal. Everyone's doing it these days." Like half the influencers I follow have their parents in managed trusts. It's modern. Lydia added quickly, "And once it's done, we can release the next disbursement. The Paris deposit cleared this morning, by the way. Thank you again. The studio owner sent the keys digitally." "Sophia's already packing." Marcus chuckled. "See, everyone wins. I told my golf buddies at the club yesterday how responsible we're being. One of them is a partner at the firm handling the trust's real estate holdings. He said the eviction notice was a masterstroke. Keeps the property value protected while we renovate. We're thinking of turning the upstairs into a proper guest suite for when Sophia visits from Europe." I signed. Not my real signature. The same shaky imitation I had perfected. Let them believe the forgery was consistent. Harold notarized it with a quick stamp and flourish. "All set. I'll file this with the court first thing tomorrow. You've made the right choice, Mrs. Voss." They all exhaled at once, the sound almost synchronized. Lydia poured herself a glass of the wine she had waiting on the sideboard. Marcus clapped Harold on the shoulder and walked him to the door, their voices fading into the hallway. "Next round is on me at the club. Tell Reynolds I said hello." Sophia stayed a moment longer. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. Her lips were dry. "You're the best, Grandma." "I'll send you pictures from the atelier once I'm settled." Then she was gone too, heels clicking up the stairs to her old bedroom. I remained seated at the table alone. The dining room smelled of the lemon polish they had used on the wood. My wood. The clock on the mantel ticked past 7. I stood, walked to the sideboard, and opened the shallow drawer where they kept recent mail. There it was, a fresh envelope from the Trust's bank, addressed to the house. Marcus had left it there, unopened, probably meaning to review it later with Lydia over their celebratory wine. I took the envelope, not stealing, just borrowing for the record. I carried it downstairs to the basement, closed the door behind me, and sat under the single bulb. The paper inside was crisp, the kind of heavy stock banks use when they want to impress. Trust fund statement, Voss Family Trust, period ending 3 days ago. I scanned the columns, deposits, withdrawals, interest accruals. Line 14 stopped me cold. Withdrawal, $340,000. Memo, advance distribution to beneficiary S. Harrington for International Education Program, authorized by Power of Attorney E. Voss, attached. Signature verified, yes. But the attached signature image was the same forgery they had used on the court petition. the one I had never signed. No notary stamp, no witness, just a wire transfer that had already cleared to an account in Paris I had never heard of. $340,000. Gone. Moved without my knowledge while I sat in the basement eating an $18 sandwich. I photographed every page, every line, every transaction code. Then I placed the statement back inside the envelope exactly as I had found it. I would return it upstairs before they noticed it missing. My hand did not shake as I wrote the entry in the notebook. Date, time, exact amount, $340,000. Unauthorized, forged authorization, witnessed by no one except the bank's automated system. Upstairs I heard their laughter again, muffled through the floorboards. The clink of glasses. Marcus's voice carrying clearly. Once the court signs off next week, the whole $4.2 million is ours to manage. No more conservative nonsense. I closed the notebook and stared at the envelope in my lap. I opened it once more under the dim light, letting the numbers burn themselves into my memory. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. The days blurred into a gray routine after the family meeting. No more knocks at the basement door. No more trays of leftovers. I measured time by the faint click of the furnace cycling on and off. My Centurion card had become my lifeline, the one plastic rectangle they had overlooked in their rush to freeze everything else. Balance, $127,000 available, untouched for years because I never flashed it. I used it sparingly, like a scalpel. On the fourth morning, I slipped upstairs before dawn. The house was silent except for the distant snore from the master bedroom. I moved to the study, the room that used to be mine. The laptop on Marcus's desk glowed faintly in sleep mode. I did not touch it. Instead, I opened the bottom drawer where he kept printed emails, the ones he always said were for the files. My fingers found a thin folder labeled Trust, Pending. Inside, 3 printed emails from his attorney, timestamps clear. The first one, dated 3 days earlier. Marcus, the forged POA on the $340,000 transfer is holding for now, but we need a fresh power of attorney signed by Eleanor this week. Judge Reynolds is asking for current documentation. Attach the new incompetence report and we can push the hearing forward. The second, bank compliance flagged the Paris wire. Sophia's account received it clean. No red flags yet. Good call routing it through the trust's offshore sleeve. The third, from Marcus himself, reply all. Keep the pressure on. Once she signs the full POA, we liquidate the remaining bonds and move everything to my managed account. $4.2 million working for us, not sitting in her boring treasuries. She'll never notice the difference until it's too late. I photographed each page in the dim glow of the desk lamp. 23 images. Resolution perfect. Then I replaced the folder exactly as I found it, wiped the drawer handle with my sleeve, and left. Back in the basement, I opened the notebook. Entries now filled 37 pages. I listed the emails word for word. Then I made the call. The private investigator answered on the second ring. Voice gravelly, professional. Thorne Investigations, how can I help? I kept my tone flat. I need surveillance on 3 people, immediate, full digital and paper trail, forgery analysis on signatures, email server access if possible. Budget is not an issue. He quoted $12,000 for the first week, rush rate. I wired it from the Centurion app while he spoke. Confirmation hit my phone in 43 seconds. Done, he said. Send me the names and addresses. I'll have preliminary reports by tomorrow night. I gave him everything. Lydia's social media handles, Marcus's firm email, Sophia's Paris account routing numbers. Then I ended the call and sat in the dark. Isolation settled over me like dust. No cash in my wallet. The $500 allowance Lydia promised never appeared. My old checking account still read 0. I ate another delivered sandwich that evening, $22 and change. The delivery driver left the bag at the top of the basement stairs. I retrieved it without seeing another soul. By the next afternoon, Thorne's first report arrived via encrypted email to the temporary account I had set up on the Centurion card. 47 pages. Bank transaction logs showing the exact path of the $340,000 to Sophia's Paris landlord. Handwriting expert preliminary opinion. High probability of forgery on all 3 documents. Microtremors inconsistent with subject's known exemplars from 2019 to 2023 tax filings. Screenshots of Marcus's deleted email folder recovered from the firm's backup server. One line stood out. If the old lady fights this, we'll just have her declared mentally incompetent retroactively. Costs us another 15 grand in expert fees, but the trust pays it anyway. I printed nothing. I saved every file to an encrypted drive the size of a quarter that I kept taped under the card table, evidence stacked like bricks. That evening, Marcus came down the stairs carrying a single sheet of paper. His face wore the same practiced smile he used on closing days. He dropped the paper on the table between us. "New development," he said. "The court wants an updated power of attorney. Broader language. Gives us full discretion over the trust. Sign it tonight and we can drop the eviction threat. Simple." I looked at the document. Page 1 listed every asset. The house, the trust, even the small annuity Richard had left me personally. My eyes stopped on Clause 9, irrevocable authority to sell real property at trustee's sole discretion. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Come on, Eleanor. You've been reasonable so far. Sophia's already in Paris. Lydia's planning the Tuscany trip for next month. 18,400, remember? We can't cancel now without losing the deposit." I picked up the pen, clicked it once. He watched me, eyes narrowing. "Sign this power of attorney, Mom, or we'll make it worse." The words hung there, cold, certain. I set the pen down slowly. Worse than living in my own basement? Worse than $340,000 wired without my consent? Worse than eviction papers on a house I paid for in cash 39 years ago? He blinked. For the first time, the smile faltered. I slid the paper back toward him, unsigned. Marcus straightened. The smirk returned, sharper now, like a blade testing its edge. "Sign this power of attorney, Mom, or we'll make it worse." I met his eyes without blinking. The single bulb hummed above us. My notebook lay closed beside my hand, heavy with 47 pages of proof. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. The basement air felt thicker after Marcus left, as if his threat had sucked the oxygen out. I sat motionless for exactly 7 minutes, counting the furnace cycles. Then I moved, not in anger, in precision. I opened the notebook to a fresh page and wrote the exact time, the exact words. "Sign this power of attorney, Mom, or we'll make it worse." I underlined worse twice. Evidence. Always evidence. By 9 the next morning, I had used the Centurion card to book a 30-minute consultation with an attorney whose name I had kept in my private contacts for 15 years. Margaret Hale, 61, former senior partner at a white shoe firm in Manhattan, now running a boutique practice out of a discreet office in Stamford. She specialized in trust litigation and elder financial abuse cases. I had referred 3 colleagues to her over the years. She owed me nothing. That made her perfect. I called from the basement using the encrypted app on my phone, voice low, steady. "Margaret, it's Eleanor Voss. I need a countersuit drafted. Mental incompetence petition filed against me. Forged POAs. Unauthorized withdrawals totaling at least $632,000 in the last 11 days. I have bank statements, emails, handwriting analysis. I want them frozen out completely." She listened without interruption. I heard the faint scratch of her pen on paper. "I'll need everything scanned and sent securely. We'll file for a temporary restraining order on the trust assets and a motion to dismiss their petition on grounds of fraud. My retainer is $25,000. Can you wire it today?" "Already done," I said. The confirmation pinged on my screen while we spoke. $25,000. Gone from the Centurion balance, but worth every cent. Margaret's voice stayed clinical. Good. I'll have a private process server at your door within 48 hours if needed. In the meantime, do not sign anything. Do not engage. Record every interaction if you can. We build the case brick by brick. I ended the call and immediately transferred the latest Thorn investigation files to her secure portal. 49 new pages since yesterday. Another 12,000 wired to Thorn for round-the-clock digital monitoring. Total spent so far on my side, 37,000. Their side had burned 632,000 of my money. The math was simple. The math was satisfying. That afternoon, the basement door flew open hard enough to bang against the wall. Marcus stormed down, Lydia right behind him, her face flushed. Sophia trailed them on video call from Paris, her face filling the tablet screen held by Lydia. "You refused the POA," Marcus said. His voice had lost its polished edge. "We just got off the phone with our attorney. He says if you keep blocking us, we'll add financial abuse charges against you. Claiming you're hiding assets, refusing to cooperate. That carries jail time, Eleanor. At your age, it won't look good." Lydia stepped closer, arms crossed. "We're trying to protect the family, Mom, and you're making it impossible. The trust paid for Sophia's studio renovation. Another $92,000 yesterday. Necessary expenses. If you force us to court on abuse claims, the judge will see you as the problem." Sophia's voice crackled through the tablet speakers. "Grandma, please. My landlord here is asking for the next payment. The studio looks incredible. Exposed beams, skylights." I posted the before and after on Instagram this morning. Everyone's loving it. The caption says, "Trust-funded dreams coming true." I kept my face blank. I had already seen the post. Thorn had forwarded the screenshot at 10:17 a.m. Sophia smiling in front of floor-to-ceiling windows, a wire transfer receipt photoshopped tastefully into the corner of the image. $92,000. Memo: Voss Family Trust, studio build-out. My account number clearly visible if you zoomed in. Marcus jabbed a finger toward me. "Sign the updated POA tonight, or we file the financial abuse complaint tomorrow. Our attorney has the paperwork ready. It'll freeze your remaining personal accounts too. The Centurion card included. You'll have nothing." Lydia added, softer now, the influencer voice she used when negotiating brand deals. "We don't want it to come to that. Just cooperate. 500 a month allowance becomes 1,000. We'll even let you stay in the basement rent-free until the hearing." I looked at each of them in turn, Marcus's jaw tight, Lydia's manicured nails digging into her own arms, Sophia's pixelated smile frozen on the screen. I said nothing. Marcus exhaled sharply. "You have until midnight. After that, the complaint goes in. Financial abuse. We'll paint you as the one draining the trust for years. The judge will believe us. We have the paper trail." They turned and left without waiting for an answer. The door slammed harder on the way out. I waited until their footsteps faded upstairs. Then I opened the notebook and added the new details. Threat of financial abuse charges. Exact time, 2:47 p.m. Additional unauthorized transfer, $92,000. Instagram post timestamp. I attached the screenshot Thorn had sent. My phone buzzed once. Margaret Hale, text only. "Motion for TRO filed this afternoon. Court date set for next Wednesday. Your evidence package is stronger than anything I've seen in 29 years. They're about to learn the definition of consequences." I allowed myself one small exhale. Not relief. Calculation. The countersuit was live. My attorney had the bank statements, the forged signatures, the recovered emails, the private investigator's logs, every brick in place. Upstairs, I heard the television switch on. Some lifestyle show. Lydia's laugh floated down through the vent, bright and brittle. Then Sophia's voice again on speaker, reading comments from her post aloud.
Queen of manifesting, so proud of you. Trust fund baby goals. I opened my phone and pulled up the Instagram screenshot one more time. There it was, Sophia in her new Paris studio, the wire transfer image enlarged in the corner for her followers to admire. $92,000 transferred yesterday from the Voss family trust account I still legally controlled. They had no idea the net was already closing. I closed the notebook slowly and stared at the single high window where evening light was turning gray. This was only the beginning of their perfect plan. The courthouse in Stamford smelled of polished wood and old paper, the kind of scent that never changes no matter how many millions move through the trust accounts inside its walls. I arrived at 9:15 sharp on Wednesday morning, wearing the charcoal suit I had ordered overnight with the Centurion card and picked up from the tailor at 6 a.m. It fit perfectly. My hair was pulled back into the low bun I had worn for every board meeting in the last 20 years. No makeup, no expression, just the facts. Margaret Hale waited for me in the hallway outside courtroom 4B. She carried a single black binder, 3 inches thick. "Everything is here," she said quietly. "Bank statements, forged signatures, recovered emails, private investigator logs, handwriting expert affidavit." The judge granted our temporary restraining order yesterday afternoon. Their accounts are frozen as of midnight. They just don't know it yet. I nodded once. We walked in together. Lydia and Marcus sat at the plaintiff table already. Sophia had flown back overnight. She perched between them in a black dress that looked expensive and borrowed. Their attorney, a slick man named Richard Langford, shuffled papers with unnecessary energy. When he saw me, his smile tightened like a knot. The bailiff called the case. "In the matter of the Voss family trust and the petition for appointment of guardian and conservator for Eleanor Voss." Judge Reynolds entered, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She had reviewed the preliminary filings. She knew the numbers. She began without preamble. "Mr. Langford, you may present." Langford stood. "Your Honor, we have clear evidence of diminished capacity, forgotten tax payments, misplaced documents, unauthorized personal spending. The family has acted responsibly by filing this petition. We ask the court to declare Mrs. Voss mentally incompetent, appoint Marcus Harrington as conservator, and transfer full management of the $4.2 million trust to him immediately." Marcus nodded along, jaw set, Rolex glinting under the courtroom lights. Lydia reached over and squeezed his hand, the picture of concerned daughter. Sophia stared straight ahead, lips pressed thin. Judge Reynolds turned to our table. "Ms. Hale?" Margaret rose. She opened the binder with a soft click. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss the petition in its entirety and file a counterclaim for fraud, forgery, and breach of fiduciary duty. The evidence will show that the petitioners have already misappropriated over $1.8 million using forged documents." She slid the first stack across to the judge. Bank statements. Highlighted lines glowed yellow. Exhibit A, $340,000 wired to a Paris account without Mrs. Voss's knowledge or consent. Signature forged. Handwriting expert confirms microtremors inconsistent with Mrs. Voss's known exemplars. Langford started to object. The judge raised one finger. He sat down. Exhibit B, $250,000 advanced to Sophia Harrington, labeled as early inheritance under duress, signed under threat of eviction from her own home. Lydia's face went pale. I watched the color drain from her cheeks in real time. Exhibit C, $92,000 for a so-called studio renovation in Paris, posted publicly on Instagram for clout, while the trust account still listed Mrs. Voss as sole trustee. Sophia shifted in her seat, her hands twisted in her lap. Margaret continued, voice level, unstoppable. Exhibit D, a planned $1.2 million withdrawal discussed in recovered emails between Mr. Harrington and the bank manager. The conversation was recorded through legal surveillance after Mrs. Voss retained counsel. Marcus's mouth opened. then closed. No sound came out. The judge flipped pages. Her eyes narrowed. "Continue, Ms. Hale." Finally, Exhibit E, the power of attorney documents and court petition itself, all bearing forged signatures. "We have time-stamped emails from Mr. Harrington instructing his attorney to keep the pressure on and make it worse if Mrs. Voss refused to sign." I sat perfectly still. My hands rested on the table, fingers relaxed. I did not look at them. I did not need to. I could feel the shift in the air, the way the room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Langford tried again. "Your Honor, these are serious allegations. We request time to—" "Denied," the judge said. She looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Harrington, you are under oath. Can you explain why the trust statements show a cumulative discrepancy of $1.85 million between authorized disbursements and actual withdrawals?" Marcus blinked. Once. Twice. The color left his face in a slow wave, starting at the collar of his shirt and rising to his hairline. Lydia's hand shot out and gripped his forearm. Her nails dug in so hard I saw the fabric of his sleeve bunch. Sophia whispered something I could not hear. Her voice cracked. Marcus opened his mouth. No words came. He glanced at Langford, who was suddenly very interested in his own shoelaces. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Harrington, I asked you a question. Can you explain this $1.85 million discrepancy?" The courtroom fell silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. I kept my gaze fixed on the judge's bench. My pulse remained steady. 72 beats per minute. I had checked it in the car on the way over. This was the moment the ledger balanced. Marcus swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed once. The Rolex on his wrist suddenly looked very heavy. The judge waited, pen poised above her notepad. I allowed myself one slow breath. They had asked for control. They were about to receive exactly what they asked for. The judge's question hung in the courtroom like a blade suspended mid-air. "Mr. Harrington, I asked you a question. Can you explain this $1.85 million discrepancy?" Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. His face had gone the color of old paper. The Rolex on his wrist caught the overhead light and flashed once, uselessly. Lydia's nails dug deeper into his sleeve. Sophia stared at the table, her Paris tan suddenly looking cheap under the fluorescent lights. Langford tried to stand. "Your Honor, if we could have a recess." "Sit down," Judge Reynolds said. Her voice was quiet, final. She turned back to Marcus. "I'm waiting." Marcus swallowed. It was family expenses. Legitimate advances. The trust allows legitimate. The judge lifted one bank statement from the binder. $340,000 to Paris, $250,000 labeled as early inheritance, $92,000 for a studio renovation posted on social media, $1.2 million planned withdrawal discussed in your own recovered emails. All backed by forged signatures. All executed while the petitioner was living in her own basement under threat of eviction from property she paid for in cash in 1987. She set the paper down with a soft slap. "Petition for mental incompetence is dismissed. Counterclaim is granted in full." The gavel came down once. Sharp, clean. Margaret slid a fresh document across the bench. "Your Honor, we request immediate relief. Full asset freeze on all accounts tied to the Voss family trust. Restitution of $1,850,000 plus 8% compounded interest from date of each unauthorized withdrawal. Permanent restraining order prohibiting contact between the respondents and Mrs. Voss. And appointment of an independent trustee to wind down the remaining assets." Judge Reynolds scanned it for 12 seconds. "Granted. All of it. Mr. Harrington, Mrs. Harrington, Miss Harrington, you have 30 days to liquidate personal assets if necessary and return every cent. Bank statements will be audited quarterly for the next 2 years. Any violation of the restraining order results in contempt charges. Do you understand?" Lydia's voice cracked first.
Your Honor, please. This is our family.
30 days, the judge repeated. Court is adjourned. The bailiff stood. The courtroom emptied in a slow wave. I remained seated. Marcus stared at me across the aisle, eyes wide, mouth half open like a man who had just watched his own house burn. Lydia was already crying silently, tears tracking mascara down her influencer-perfect cheeks. Sophia looked smaller than 19, smaller than the girl who had demanded $250,000 for exposed beams and skylights. I stood. The charcoal suit felt light on my shoulders. Margaret touched my elbow once. It's over, Eleanor. The freeze hits their accounts in 90 minutes. Centurion card is unfrozen as of now. The house is yours again. Eviction notice is void. I nodded. Thank you. Outside on the courthouse steps, the air smelled of cut grass and coming rain. I called Thorne Investigations from the sidewalk. Wrap the file. Send the final invoice to my new attorney. $200,000 bonus if the audit turns up anything else. Then I walked to the car I had ordered with the Centurion card. No driver, just me behind the wheel for the first time in weeks. I drove straight to the bank in Greenwich. The manager met me in the private office. I signed new directives in my own precise handwriting. The remaining $2.35 million in the trust was transferred that afternoon to the Eleanor Voss Foundation for Financial Literacy, a quiet entity I had incorporated at 3 a.m. 2 weeks earlier from the basement. 0 family beneficiaries, scholarships for women over 60 who had once managed risk for hedge funds and lost everything to their own children. I listed the Victorian house for sale the next morning. Asking price, $1.8 million. Cash buyers only, closing in 21 days. The realtor tried to talk me into staging it. I told her no. Let the next owners see the basement room exactly as it was. Concrete floor, single bulb, card table still holding the faint coffee ring from my last sandwich. Marcus tried to call once, blocked by the restraining order. Lydia sent a single email from a new address.
Mom, we can fix this. We're family.
I forwarded it to Margaret with one line. Add to the contempt file. Sophia posted nothing. Her Instagram went dark for the first time in 4 years. I moved out on the 22nd day. 1 suitcase, the Centurion card, the black notebook, nothing else. I left the keys on the mahogany table with a single note in my handwriting. You asked for control. You received it. Enjoy the audit. The new owners closed escrow the following week. I was already 3 states away in a small coastal town in Maine, a modest gray-shingled cottage overlooking the water. No trust fund drama, no family meetings, just the sound of waves and the quiet click of my own front door locking behind me every night. I sat on the porch the first evening with a fresh pot of Earl Grey. No sugar, the same blend. The sunset painted the water gold, and I watched it without smiling, without tears. Just the slow, even breath of a woman who had once analyzed risk for a living and had finally applied the same precision to her own life. They had filed for mental incompetence. They had forged signatures. They had evicted me from my own home and spent $1.85 million of money I had earned and protected for decades. They had demanded full control of the trust fund, the house, the future. They got exactly what they asked for, and they hated every second of it. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments, what would you have done the moment you saw that forged signature on the first petition? Would you have signed their papers to keep the peace, or would you have started building the counterfile the same night? I read every single one. Until next time. The restitution order hit their accounts like a silent guillotine. Within 90 minutes of the gavel, every linked bank statement turned red. Marcus's firm email inbox filled with alerts. Lydia's credit cards declined at the boutique where she had already ordered new luggage for Tuscany. Sophia's Paris landlord sent a terse message. The next $92,000 installment was overdue,
and the studio lease would terminate in 72 hours unless paid in full. I watched none of it in person. Margaret Hale forwarded the automated reports. $1,850,000 principal, plus $148,000 in compounded interest at 8%, due in 30 days. Personal guarantees attached to their names. No appeals. No extensions. Marcus called his golf buddies. None answered. His law firm partner left a voicemail at 4:17 p.m. The ethics committee received an anonymous tip about the forged POAs. We're suspending your license pending review. The click that followed was the sound of a career ending. Lydia tried to sell her influencer content calendar. Brands pulled sponsorships within 48 hours. We cannot associate with financial misconduct, one email read. Her last post, captioned, "Trust the process," received 3 comments before the account was restricted. She deleted it. The silence that replaced her daily notifications must have felt louder than any courtroom. Sophia flew home on a coach ticket. The Paris atelier owner kept the deposit as liquidated damages. $250,000 gone. She arrived at the Greenwich house to find the locks changed under the independent trustee's order. A single duffel bag and the restraining order taped to the front door. She stood on the porch for 11 minutes. The security camera I had left active recorded every second. I did not watch the footage. I did not need to. On day 21, I signed the house sale papers in the realtor's office. Cash offer, $1.8 million. The buyers, a retired couple from Vermont, never asked about the basement room. I left it exactly as it was. Concrete floor, single bulb, card table, the faint coffee ring from my last delivered sandwich, a quiet monument to what they had tried to bury me in. The proceeds went straight into the Eleanor Voss Foundation. 2 scholarships announced the same week. One for a 68-year-old widow in Ohio who had lost her 401k to her son's crypto scheme. Another for a former risk analyst in Chicago whose daughter had forged power of attorney papers. 4.2 million total, now working for women who understood the difference between family and liability. I drove north the next morning. Maine. A small grey-shingled cottage on a quiet cove. Purchase price, $420,000. Cash. No mortgage. No trust fund strings. The front porch faced east. I unpacked one suitcase, hung the charcoal suit in the closet, and placed the black notebook on the mantel. 39 pages of records. Closed. The first evening, I brewed Earl Grey. No sugar. The same blend. I sat in the wooden rocker and listened to the tide. No phone calls, no basement footsteps overhead, no Marcus leaning in the doorway with another demand. Just the low rhythm of water against rock and the slow, even beat of my own pulse. They had asked for control of the trust. They received it in the form of quarterly audits and personal liability for every unauthorized cent. They had asked for the house. They received an eviction notice of their own when the trustee sold it out from under them. They had asked for early inheritance, Paris studios, Tuscany villas. They received 30-day repayment notices and frozen accounts instead. I took another sip. The tea was perfect. 3 weeks later, Margaret sent the final audit summary. Marcus had liquidated his 401k and the equity in his car to make the first payment. $112,000 wired to the foundation. Lydia sold her jewelry collection on a private auction site. Sophia transferred what remained of her Paris savings. Every transaction logged, every dollar tracked. They hated it. I could feel the hatred in the terse confirmation emails their new attorney sent. No apologies, just compliance. The restraining order kept their words at a distance of 500 feet. I never replied. I rose from the rocker and walked inside. The cottage smelled of salt and fresh paint. I locked the door behind me, the deadbolt sliding home with a solid click. Then I sat at the small oak desk by the window and opened a fresh notebook. Not for records this time, for whatever came next. The waves continued outside, steady, unbothered.
They had demanded everything. They received exactly what they asked for, and they hated every second of it. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments, what would you have done the moment you saw that forged signature on the first petition? Would you have signed their papers to keep the peace, or would you have started building the counterfile the same night? I read every single one. Until next time.